Ever imagined your tractor, just suddenly going rogue, like veering off course right when you're in the middle of planting?
Yeah.
Like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Yeah, it is. It's almost like the tractor is possessed or something.
Right. But it's not a movie. It's actually happening.
Hmm.
Farmers are dealing with this. And get this, the culprit is solar storms. Today, we are diving deep into this, well, it's kind of a clash between high-tech farming and the sun.
The power of the sun, yeah, for sure.
So I think a lot of us might not have personally experienced a solar storm. So, like, what are we even talking about here?
Well, okay, so the sun has this cycle, right? And about every 11 years, it kind of has these bursts of energy. They're called solar flares and coronal mass ejections.
Okay.
It's almost like if you can picture the sun sneezing.
Okay.
Instead of germs, though, it's throwing out these charged particles, and they travel through space super fast. When they hit the Earth's atmosphere, they can really mess with our magnetic field, and that's how we get these geomagnetic storms.
Okay, so the sun sneezes and we get hit with this geomagnetic storm.
Right.
But how does that mess with tractors?
Well, that's where GPS comes in. Our whole global positioning system, it relies on these satellites orbiting the Earth, and they send out signals that our devices use to figure out where they are.
Right.
But those signals, they have to go through the ionosphere to get to us. It's this layer in the Earth's atmosphere, and, well, it gets pretty turbulent during a geomagnetic storm.
This is kind of like a rough ride for those signals.
It is, and it can really mess things up. You can get distorted signals, or they could even get blocked completely. Basically, it makes it hard for anything that uses GPS to work right.
And that includes all these super smart tractors that are being used more and more these days.
Exactly. Think about it. Modern tractors depend so much on GPS. Now it's everything from the steering to the planting.
Oh, so like the precision planting where they space out the seeds perfectly.
That's it. And even things like putting down the fertilizer or keeping track of how much the crops are producing, it's all tied to GPS. It's a whole concept. It's called precision agriculture.
Yeah.
The whole idea is to use technology to make farming more efficient, produce more food and do it all sustainably.
But what we're learning is that by depending so much on GPS, we're also opening ourselves up to these solar sneezes.
It's almost ironic.
It is.
We've engineered these incredible machines, but in the end, they're still at the mercy of nature.
And I'd imagine that for farmers, the impact of this is pretty big. I mean, it's got to be more than just an inconvenience.
Oh, absolutely. It can cause real problems, money problems even. Like, think about it. Precision agriculture is all about, well, it's about using your resources wisely and getting the most out of your crops. If your GPS goes haywire, you could end up wasting seeds, fertilizer, fuel, not to mention, the time you lose trying to fix the problem. And for farmers, timing is everything. Especially when you're planting or harvesting, those are critical periods, and these disruptions can really hit their bottom line.
So we had these solar storms messing with the GPS signals, and it's the farmers with their GPS-guided tractors who are right in the middle of it. What's being done to help them deal with this? I mean, they can't just stop working every time there's a solar flare.
Luckily, there are some brilliant people out there working on solutions, and you probably won't be surprised to hear that artificial intelligence is playing a big role.
Okay, AI to the rescue. So how exactly can AI help out with this? Is it like, I don't know, a force field or something that shields the tractors from space?
Not quite a force field, but AI has a lot of potential here. One of the things AI is really good at is, well, it's really good at predictions. Like, by looking at the data that comes from space weather agencies, places like NASA AI can actually learn to spot the patterns that usually come before a solar storm.
Okay.
And that means it can predict when and where they're most likely to happen.
So it's like a space weather forecast,
Yeah.
but tailored specifically for farmers and their tractors.
You got it. Imagine getting a notification on your phone that says, hey, there's a good chance of a solar storm in your area tomorrow, so you might want to hold off on using your GPS equipment in the fields. Having that heads up lets farmers plan ahead, adjust their schedules, and avoid problems.
That's pretty amazing. But what happens if a storm pops up out of nowhere? Or if a farmer just can't afford to delay their work? Are there any AI solutions that can help in those situations?
Absolutely. One of the really cool things AI can do is something called data fusion.
Okay, now that sounds interesting. Data fusion. What is that?
Okay, so think about this. Your tractor is constantly picking up all sorts of data from its sensors.
Okay.
It's not just the GPS, it's also things like how fast the wheels are spinning, how the engine's performing, and even the angle of the ground.
Wow.
And it can even tap into external data like satellite images or past weather patterns. What AI does is it takes all of this information, all this data, and it combines it or fuses it. It creates a much more complete picture of what's happening around the tractor.
Ah, I see. So even if the GPS is acting up, the AI can kind of fill in the blanks using all that other information.
Exactly. It's like giving the tractor a backup navigation system so it can keep working even when the GPS is unreliable. And that can prevent a lot of the problems that come with solar storms, like the sudden stops, the weird movements, and those expensive errors.
Mm.
It's not just about keeping the tractor going, though AI can actually be used to change the tractor's settings while it's working in the field to make up for bad GPS data.
Oh, interesting.
So let's
Okay.
say the tractor is planting seeds
Okay.
and the GPS signal starts drifting. The AI can actually see that happening,
Yeah.
analyze the data that it does have, and then adjust things like how deep the seeds are planted or how far apart they are to make sure they still end up in the right spot.
So it's like the AI is thinking on the fly, making those quick decisions a farmer would make if they were driving.
Yeah, it really is. It's a game changer for precision agriculture. And it's not just about reacting to problems either. AI can also be used beforehand to make the best use of resources, even when the GTS isn't working great. Like it can look at past data about the soil, the weather, and crop yields to figure out how to use fertilizer and water most efficiently. So every drop counts, even when the GPS is being wonky.
It sounds like AI is becoming a must-have for farmers, especially with solar storms becoming a bigger problem. But what about other approaches? Are there any other technologies being developed to help farmers deal with this GPS vulnerability?
Absolutely. While AI is a powerful tool, it's important not to put all our eggs in one basket. Relying on just one technology can make us vulnerable. That's why researchers and engineers are looking into all sorts of solutions to make GPS more reliable or even come up with alternatives. One promising area is sensor fusion, which we talked about earlier.
Right, where the tractor uses data from its onboard sensors to get a better idea of what's around it.
Exactly. Companies are developing really advanced sensors now, like IMUs, which track how the tractor moves, and LiDAR, which uses lasers to create a 3D map of the environment. By combining what these sensors pick up with GPS data, or even using them on their own when the GPS is really bad, tractors can navigate more accurately and reliably.
So it's like giving the tractor multiple senses so it can see and feel its way through the field, even when its GPS vision is blurry.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Some companies are even making tractors with 360-degree vision systems. It's like giving them eyes all around. They use cameras to constantly watch the tractor surroundings so they can spot obstacles, find the crop rows, and even change their path in real time to avoid bumping into things or to plant the seeds better.
That's amazing. It's like the tractor is becoming aware of its surroundings
Hmm.
and responding in a way we wouldn't have thought possible a few years ago.
It's incredible how far agricultural technology has come, and we're really just getting started. There's another technology I want to mention called real-time kinematic or RTK positioning. This system uses a network of ground stations to send corrections to GPS signals. So you end up with accuracy down to the centimeter.
Centimeter level, that's like threading a needle with a tractor.
RTK is already being used in some farming applications, and it has huge potential for dealing with GPS disruptions.
Hmm.
Imagine a tractor planting seeds so precisely that it can put each one in the perfect spot, even during a solar storm.
That level of precision could change everything.
Yeah.
But with all this talk about high-tech solutions, what about the farmers themselves? How are they adapting to this new reality of GPS vulnerability and all these AI and other advanced technologies coming in? It must be a lot to handle.
It is. But farmers are incredibly resilient and adaptable. They're used to dealing with tough situations, whether it's unpredictable weather-changing market prices or, in this case, solar storms messing with their tractors. Many farmers are embracing these new technologies. They see them as opportunities to improve their work and make their farms more efficient and sustainable.
So it's not about technology replacing farmers, but giving them new tools to face the challenges of a changing world.
Exactly. And we can't forget that technology alone isn't the answer. We need to make sure farmers have the information and support they need to use these solutions effectively. That means scientists, engineers, technology companies, and of course the farmers themselves all working together. We need to make sure these technologies are easy to use, accessible, and tailored to the specific needs of different farms.
It sounds like a whole network of expertise and support is needed to help farmers navigate this complex situation with GPS vulnerability and all these technological advances.
It is, and it's changing all the time. As we rely more and more on GPS and the effects of solar storms become clearer, the need for innovative solutions is only going to grow. We need to keep pushing the boundaries of research and development, exploring new technologies, and encouraging collaboration between different fields to make sure agriculture can thrive even with these challenges.
This deep dive has been really eye-opening. It's fascinating and a little bit scary to realize how something as far away as the sun can have such a direct impact on something as important as our food supply.
It really shows how connected everything in our world is, doesn't it? From the sun's activity to our GPS satellites to the tractors planting our food, it's all part of this intricate system that we often take for granted.
And it really highlights how important it is to understand those connections, to be aware of the weak points in our systems, and to come up with solutions that aren't just high-tech, but also resilient and adaptable. Because as we've seen, even our most advanced technologies can be affected by the forces of nature.
And that brings us to an important question for our listeners. In a world where we depend more and more on technology, how do we make sure that these systems we rely on are not only smart, but can also handle surprises? Things like solar storms or other unexpected events.
Yeah, and this goes way beyond just farming, right? I mean, we've seen how GPS problems can mess with tractors, but think about all the other things that depend on GPS.
Right.
Transportation, communication, even things like finance and emergency services.
Yeah.
Our whole world runs on GPS.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
not just about tractors, it affects all of us. It really makes you think about how to build resilience into those systems. How can we make sure there are backups? Systems that can take over when the main ones go down. And how can we use technology not just to do more, but also to protect ourselves from problems?
And maybe even more importantly, how do we learn to be more adaptable, not just as individuals, but as a society?
Right?
I mean, what we've learned about solar storms shows that the problems we face are complicated.
They are.
There's not always an easy answer. And we need to be flexible. We need to be creative and willing to change our approach as we learn more.
It's about being proactive, not just reacting after something bad happens, but actually anticipating problems and building in resilience from the start.
This deep dive has really shown me that we live in a world where technology and nature are so closely connected. And it's more complicated than we often realize. To deal with that complexity, we need to be informed, adaptable, and I think most of all, curious.
Absolutely. Curiosity is what pushes us to explore, to ask questions, to keep learning. And in a world that's always changing, that willingness to learn and adapt is what will help us thrive.
So to everyone listening, stay curious. Dig deeper into the things that piqued your interest today. Look into the latest advancements in agricultural technology. Find out more about how we predict space weather. Or even just think about ways to make your own life and work more resilient.
Because knowledge is power. And when the world throws curveballs at us, understanding how things connect can make all the difference.
We've only scratched the surface here today, but hopefully this deep dive has given you some food for thought. It's amazing how something as far away as the sun can impact something as essential as farming.
It really is. And the ways people are coming up with solutions to navigate those challenges is inspiring.
It is. So let's keep the conversation going, share your thoughts, ask questions, and keep learning. It's the best way to make sure we're all ready for whatever comes next, whether it's a solar storm, a technology meltdown, or something we haven't even thought of yet.
Well said.
And with that, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those tractors running smoothly.